Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash. Double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth with sincerity. And shout out to Yakins out there in 4 quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash, Brakatum. So out here another week in the what's supposed to be spring. Of course, a little bit of rain today, but light sprinkles. And nonetheless, though, storms are brewing. And that is the next phase of World War III. That is where everything goes back to the way it is. Surprise attacks, possibly even a ground invasion. I mean, that's been luring for some time that they're planning a ground invasion. Or are they just going to drag this thing out, going on and on and on? Well, the scriptures do give us an indicator that the least of flocks shall draw them out. Shall I make their habitations desolate because of them? Well, this doesn't happen in just one single event, but a series of events, right? Because the way Apostle Tahar put it to us is that when they began attacking Iran is when you need to look closer, right? And that they'd be brought into Arabia, right? Saudi Arabia, and that's exactly where the troops are being lined up. Right there on that side, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, that's where they're getting ready for this possible ground invasion, which may or may not happen, but it could happen. I don't see that it's not going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen right away in the way they think it is, because they're just going to keep on dragging this out. They're going to do a little bit here and there and all that, but as far as launching a full ground invasion, I believe that they're going to just drag this out. I believe the New World Order is going to convince, that is moving towards a digital dollar. I believe the strait is going to remain closed. That's why it keeps on opening, close, open, close, open, close. Because violations keep happening, right? Because the Israeli state, at least the flock, never honors a ceasefire agreement, right? Supposedly, they have another 2-week ceasefire with Lebanon. Well, they had one for a whole fucking year, and they didn't fucking honor that. They kept violating that, so what makes this one any different? It doesn't. Just like the temporary ceasefire on Iran, even though they're still attacking Iran in every other way, right? By putting blockades against, naval blockades against their ships in the Indian Ocean, and other places, right? Well, of course, Iran's going to figure out how to get around that. And like everything else, though, China, who's actually been kind of, neutral in this, but not so much as neutral as you'd think, but yet is still the main trading partner of the U.S. Despite all the rhetoric of Donald Trump, most of the imports come from China, so they can never compete against it because, let's face it, the world's reserve currency, it ain't the petrodollar anymore. That's being replaced by the yuan. And in fact, the toll that Iran is collecting to pass the strait is in the yuan. And other countries are looking to trade in the yuan, the digital yuan. So that digital dollar is coming. And I believe that's going to be pushed before the full throttle, the full ground invasion, and all these other countries joining into the war. But they're all picking a side. Because Turkey hasn't really been invaded yet. But yet there's talks of it. They're saying that President Erdogan could be the next Saddam Hussein, according to the Israeli state. That they plan to go after Turkey next. Well, we know that Gomer and all its troops, because that's who Turkey is on the list. And then it mentions how Russia's going to come down. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet. But it's going to be a lot more than just diplomacy. So we talk about this all the time because, we're seeing moves being made. But we're going to keep on seeing moves made. But World War III, it's been here for quite some time. It's just that the third woe that cometh quickly, the nuclear war, comes at a time when they are going to say peace and safety, right? Peace agreements, etc. Yeah, you see those broken all the time. But when everybody's thinking, oh, okay, well, everything seems to be normal, then all of a sudden it happens because this third world war is already here. The Israeli state is not going to stop because who is telling them? Who's giving them the info to say, yeah, let's go to war with them? Who's stirring them up to begin with? The Most High is doing that, right? How many times did he stir up Pharaoh to go after the Israelites? And he just kept on doing it, even though he was fighting against the Most High himself and could never do it. And he knew that that was the one true power, but yet he was being stirred up to do that because the Most High is the one in control of everything, right? Why would you go on a suicide mission like that, right? Well, they know that Iran is this enemy that they can never defeat, yet they seem to be given the idea that they can win. They always think they can win. Just like nuclear war. They believe they can win a nuclear war. Who's telling them they can win a nuclear war? Who's giving them that thought? Who's giving that evil thought, right? Thou shalt think an evil thought, right? So Russia, is going to be given into that evil thought. I will go down to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, right? So like everything else, though, who's going to stir this all up? Who's going to stir up Gog and Magog? Who's against Gog and Magog, right? So the Most High is in control of this whole thing. But like everything else, though, you got other things that are going to take place, such as a famine, right? There's going to be a famine, and it's going to be a worldwide famine, and that's all being done on purpose. So, we're just watching it in real time. You see, like everything else, though, we've told you, we've given you the, definition of these scriptures. We've gone into depths about them. And so as they happen, well, what do? We reiterate, because we already done told you. The great I told you so happened a long time ago. Shit, you could say it even happened in 2020, the year of prophecy, right? We told you that they were going to usher in a new world order. Well, Klaus Schwab wrote a whole book called COVID-19, The Great Reset. Well, that was the beginning of the Great Reset, but they're going to continue to go full throttle with this Great Reset. COVID was just the beginning of things, right? The Strait of Hormuz being closed, and tolls being charged to the strait, and all this collecting of oil and resources around the world is on purpose, because Ukraine is nothing but resources as well. So with supply demands and shortages and all that, it's going to usher in the MOTB system, as this video goes into.
Good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon red alert. At the risk of sounding alarmist, I want to tell you that the shortage of sulfur and ammonia that is happening right now
all done on
is
purpose.
A literal global catastrophe. For the moment, I want you to forget about oil and natural gas prices.
But that's still a factor.
Food program funding cut their food availability, and the prices began
food scarcity
skyrocketing. They have limited the ability of different organizations to help different groups and farmers. We're talking right now about a reported death toll from what is coming.
A projected death toll.
Comparable to World War. We're looking at a potential tripling of food prices and food instability just by the year 2027.
Hyperinflation.
The Malacca Strait is going to be even worse than the Strait of Hormuz crisis. It's a 2-kilometer wide at its narrowest point, naval navigation point. It's heavily congested. It accounts for 25% of the world's global energy flows and 30% of all trade, including that coming to America, comes through Malacca. Financial analysts say that its sudden cutoff, which is in the planning phase, will have an immediate and severe impact on every single sphere of life. That includes energy prices.
So, like everything else, though, it's a manufactured crisis, right? Because that strait has nothing to do with Iran, but yet at the same time, it's come up. That's because they're deliberately causing this events to happen, right? To depend on a universal basic income to cover all these things, right? Because there's shortages worldwide. It's all being done on purpose to usher it in, to usher in the dependency for these programs, right? And like everything else, so you could forget about where you could right now, you could go to food banks to get everything. Eventually, the National Guard and all of them are going to be distributing that. It's not going to be just as easy to go to them places as it was before. No, the government is only going to give out so much, and it's going to be very, very limited, because they're doing all this on purpose. They're purposely shortening the stock of everything, of what comes in and what goes out, right? With all these straits alone. Well, that's the reason for it. But you could definitely tell that the Strait of Malacca has nothing to do with Iran, but yet this is a world event, causing shortages around the world, causing a dependency for a new world order. And that's how they do it, incrementally, and by dragging the war on and on, because it's like, oh, there's a ceasefire. There's a, they just violated the ceasefire. Well, there's a ceasefire again. Oh, they just violated it. And then you got Malacca, which has nothing to do with the Strait of Hormuz. But now they, all of a sudden, now that strait is being closed, right? Or you have to pay a toll or go around it, which is going to cause everything to be deliberately slowed down. While you still have the fertilizer problem, while you still have the oil problem. You see, It just happens in increments, right? Because now this is another event. Oh, and not to mention the Red Sea, right? The Suez Canal. There's that too. So all these places are being shut down. Ukraine is where most of the minerals are, and that's been at war for quite some time. So you see, World War III and all the events leading towards the Great Reset, which COVID-19 was just the beginning of it, right? Because, to fake a virus worldwide and make everybody think that it was real by creating this test to tell whether you have it or you don't, even though it's just nothing more than the flu, but nonetheless, though, to give false positives and to change everything to where, it's all about a COVID test. Well, you could have COVID toes, right? You could have this, you could have that, to where everything's centered around COVID. Well, they did it. That was just the beginning of things, right? Because, shit, you couldn't even get checked in if you had any flu-like symptoms, right? You weren't going to be prescribed antibiotics or anything. You had to go through the whole COVID shit. It's like, well, I don't believe in it, so I ain't tested for it. Yeah, right. They're not going to treat you at all. They won't even look at you. They're going to tell you if you have any symptoms of COVID, you can't come. Well, you're not going to be able to buy or sell, save you that has the MLTB, right? Your ability to be able to buy and sell. Because trading is going to be done away with, right? Because look at what's happening to all the trading routes. Yeah, they're going to regulate everything. Everything's going to be on that chip. And pretty much, though, if you ain't got the chip, you ain't going to be able to commerce. You see? They have everything tracked through digital money. Everything into that digital wallet, and that's what's coming of these things. They're ushering it in through all the events taking place. So, they just drag this war on forever and ever. It just goes on forever and ever. How long has this war of terror gone on, right? They'd be looking for a guy in a cave, but they never seem to find him, but the war just goes on and on. There's all these countries that they want to invade, leading Iran the last, right? Because they wanted to go into Yemen, they wanted to go into Syria. Oh, they did overthrow Syria. Oh, Libya, they're going to hit Libya. They took out Libya. They took out Muammar Gaddafi. All these places they had already taken out, but leaving Iran last. Or is it last? No, it doesn't end with Iran because they're going to go after Turkey next as well, because it's all part of that greater Israel project. It's all about gathering all the armies into that valley of Jehoshaphat, because who said that? Who declared that I will bring them there into the valley of Jehoshaphat? Who's the one that told us that? Yahweh did, right? And whatever Yahweh tells his prophets, that's exactly what's going to happen, because who's mustering them up to go there to begin with? Who's mustering them up? Again, modern day Pharaoh, is being busted up. And there's rumors, and it's more than the rumors that Donald Trump was trying to get the launch codes last weekend to launch a nuclear strike against Iran. And like everything else, so the generals, high-ranking officials had actually refused to give Trump the codes because, they thought that would be suicide. No, that's irrational. He's not thinking correctly. But who's mustering them up to do this? Who's holding them back, for that matter? See, like everything else, though, the scriptures tell us, loose those angels that are bound in the great river Euphrates. So that event could have taken place last weekend, but the Most High says it's not time yet because something else has to be in prophecy first, because it tells you very clearly in Revelation chapter 14 that the results of taking the MOTB is being caught up in the nuclear war, but yet at the same time, though, that there are angels that are bounding. They're bound there in the great river Euphrates, which is where all this is about to light up. It's all going to light up once the go-ahead happens, because it tells us that in Revelation chapter 9. It gives us a real good glimpse of World War III in Revelation chapter 9. Revelation chapter 9, verse 12, it reads, "One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more thereafter," right? Because World War II already happened. Well, we know what World War III is. "And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before the Most High Yahweh, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates." So that's right there in that valley of Jehoshaphat. "And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men." And how's that slayer going to happen? What's the ultimate slayer that's going to destroy 1/3 of man? "And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. I heard the number of them. What's that talking about? Nuclear missiles, 200 million nuclear missiles. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of lacense and brimstone. So again, it's talking about the cylinders, right? And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, talking about the warheads itself. And out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. Talking about these nuclear missiles, these ICBMs that are going to be fired. That's the that's the horsemen, right? The 200,000 horsemen, which are not literal horses, but as in, these nuclear missiles, these ICBMs. By these was a third part of men killed by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. So third part of men was destroyed in this third world war, which is coming, which is also going to bring down Babylon the Great. It's going to turn this place into the lake of fire, which is why we do everything diligently, because we don't want to be caught in that lake of fire. We don't want to be brought before the Most High saying, I never knew you, you workers of iniquity, because again, there's going to be many that are going to be calling upon his mercy, and the Most High is not going to even recognize them. Yahweh has no recollect of them. Yeah, you did all these things, but I don't know you. You didn't do the will of Yahweh. You didn't do the will of Yahweh, right? So, you're going to be dismissed. You're going to be pretty much caught in that judgment, because that's what the consequences are, right? It's like everything else, though. Not everybody's meant to get this, but there are a certain group that are meant to get it, That's why, when you talk to people, yeah, they have some. They know that the chip is the MOTB, that they know about that, but then they don't know about the rest of the ramifications. They couldn't tell you who the dragon is. They couldn't tell you who the beast is, They can't tell you who the false prophet is, And they would say, well, the false prophet is the Pope. I've heard a lot of people say that, It's not, well, the Pope is the leader of the Catholic faith, but false prophet just means anybody who's a false teacher, right? Where is this place where the beast and false prophet are? Think about it. Where the beast and the false prophet are, where did that come from? Out of Babylon the Great, right? It comes from Rome. It comes from Babylon, because the new Rome is Babylon. Esau, Edom is, in fact, Rome. So Rome, the new Rome, has been here in Babylon. So that's where plantation Christianity, the false teachings, came from, right? Came out of Babylon the Great. And the beast, because it's the whore that rides the beast, which is, the head of the United Nations, etc., right? It's all run by Babylon. So, indeed, the destruction coming to Babylon the Great. Well, we know who Mystery Babylon the Great is, No, it's not the Catholic Church. No, it's not the Vatican. But it is, in fact, America. America is the place of Babylon. And the king of Babylon is here in our presence today. Nero 47, a.k.a. Donald J. Trump, in the reincarnate of Nero, he's here today. And that's why his ego is greater than any others, because he has a huge role to play as the king of Babylon. Because indeed, Isaiah chapter 14 talks about the end of his kingdom, his end of his rulership. And a few weeks ago, he depicted himself to be the Messiah. He depicted himself as this healer, as the savior of the world. He later deleted the photo, but nonetheless, so he did depict himself as such. And it talks about him in Isaiah chapter 14. You could isolate it to the king of Babylon, because it does talk about the king of Babylon as well. But you can also isolate it to, the elites, right? The Illuminati, because that's what Lucifer means, No, it doesn't mean Satan. It means, it could mean, it could go that way, but it can also mean light bearer. That's what the true definition of Lucifer is. Yet it talks about Lucifer in chapter 14, and about the end of Babylon as well. So as you get into it, and you read the rest of the corresponding verses. See, a lot of people just read one verse, but they don't read the corresponding verses. I like to go in, and it's like, well, there's a lot of corresponding verses to that. It's the message you're trying to give from that correlate with the rest of the verses in there. See? So this is also talking about the king of Babylon. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 10, and he shall speak and say unto thee, Are thou become as weak as... Oh, okay, wait. All right, that's talking about the adversaries, right? You know, and right now with Donald Trump being... And Babylon not being that fearsome anymore. A lot of people don't fear Babylon like they used to, right? You know? So... but, you know... Well... This is also talk. There it is right here. We've got to go back to verse 14. Now, this is going through some time frames. Is also talking about when Yahushua shall rule the earth as well. It talks about that kingdom as well, because Isaiah spoke a lot about the next kingdom and about the fall of Esau Edom at the same time. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 4, and it reads, "Thou shalt take up a proverb against the king of Babylon." Okay, well, who's the king of Babylon now? Well, it's real easy, right? And say, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased, right? You know, so now that it's talking about America, right? The Most High have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers, meaning that Babylon the Great is no longer, you know, going to be in rulership, right? It's not going to have that power. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke that had ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. You know, because, you know, America get away with everything, right? Yet they, you know, they steal land, they do all this. The whole earth is at rest and quiet, and they break forth into singing, meaning that, okay, you know, Yahushua has put him down, has taken down this king of Babylon, has destroyed the kingdom. See, like everything else, so, you know, this is talking about the kingdom to come at the same time, talking about the end of Babylon. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, he no longer come up against us. You know, because Esau does nothing more than destroying the environment, destroying the trees, destroying everything, right? He's the one that created, well, okay, it goes back to even before him, but yet at the same time, though, he's the main one doing it, you know, cutting down these trees just to celebrate that wicked festivity that goes all the way back to the original Babel. Think about it. You know, the original Babel is where, you know, winter solstice comes from, right? You know, Nineveh, you know, well, Babylon the Great is also compared to Nineveh because of all the wickedness on the earth. Babylon the Great far exceeds that of all. Hell is beneath is moored for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. You know, that's basically talking about when Yahushua shall put him down, right? And they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou become weak as we? Art thou like unto us? And that's what they're saying now. You know? They're seeing that, wait, this country, Iran, is able to stand up to this superpower. America's the great superpower on earth who has ruled all this time. Yet we're seeing that, there are those that can rise up. Thy pomp is brought down to the ground, and the noise of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. You know, so basically everybody's seeing the shameful place of America being brought down. How art thou fallen from heaven? Which means your kingdom, right? You know, this place, the city of confusion, this place of destruction, the hammer of the whole earth, how is it fallen from its place? O Lucifer, son of the morning, you know. They complain, they are the light bearers of the world, if you will, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, it can relate to that. How art thou cut to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Talking about Babylon the Great, mystery Babylon the Great. Because it's saying that, look, this kingdom is no longer what it was. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahweh. Which are the stars of Yahweh? The Israelites. You know, Donald Trump in particularly has gone after the Israelites big time. You know, in every way possible with ISIS and then just, you know, all the other things, going after all those other, you know, what he called shithole countries. Those are all the places of the Israelites, so he's come down very hard upon us. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, the sides of the north. You know, and that's talking about this place, North America, Babylon. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Well, you can see that symbolically, and you can also see that, wait, under Donald Trump, he did create the Space Force. What's that Space Force used for? Well, because they're going to try to fight Yahushua and the angels. Yeah, he watches our videos. He knows who the angels are. He knows that those are that what they call UFOs are in fact the angels of the Most High. He knows all this. He was brought up to know these things. You shall be brought down to hell in the sides of the pit, meaning that you'll be brought to ruins. That's when this place is destroyed, right? And they shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Yeah, they're laughing at Donald Trump now. But they're going to be laughing even harder, because I believe that Donald Trump will definitely, well, he's also known as Bunker Boy, isn't he? Yeah, he's the Bunker Boy. He's going to hide from the missiles, right? Of course. All these elites, they have their hiding spots, right? You've been hearing a lot about these ground purchases, and you know that D.C., they have a place for the president to rule out of. They even show you that in Terminator 3. That indeed there's, not just NORAD, but other places, they have these underground bunkers where the rulership can be there. The president can be there. You saw that in Terminator 3. And then they could take command after a nuclear war, and still give the commands. Because, yeah, they plan to fly above the skies, right, into the heavens, and yet at the same time, they plan to fight Yahweh Shai and the angels as the smoke goes up, right? See, they know about all this. But like everything else, though, most people, this is going to catch them unaware. They're going to be caught unaware because they're looking for JC to come out of the sky, right? They've been fed this bullshit the false prophet has told them, because that just pretty much means the false religious system of the world, is giving them the illusion that JC is going to come to save the day and that he's all love. He's all love, Now that we found love, what are we going to do with it? And that's all that they sing. They only sing songs like that, and they just, are ridiculous. They don't even think that he's a punishable deity. They don't even teach you that, wait a minute, there's this people they had indignation with forever, and that's Esau. See, he has indignation against Esau, especially Amalek. Well, the only one that might teach you that is if you listen to Slayer, right? God hates us all. You ever listen to it? Because it tells you, yes, he despises this race. He despises this fucking place. It's true. He hates this race. It's true. He hates this place. Talking about Babylon, right? See, if you listen to Slayer, they're giving you a lot more revelation than you ever did to those stupid songs you might have sang in, this ridiculous COGIC and all these other places, right? Even IUIC sounds just like COGIC, which, aka Church of God in Christ, all these other places. And they even teach in the name of Christ, so it's really just nothing more than, they tell you that you're Israelites. That's about it, but they won't tell you what his name is. Even though we know, and we've proven it time and time again, we have tapes, tons of tapes of it, where he's calling upon the names Yahweh Shai. But then later he says he hates that name. Why? Because he's sold out. You got a lot of Judases around. He's one of the main ones. That's misleading our people. So that's why we can never do reunions with them. Even though, yeah, we all once come from One West. But, the only ones that really stuck to what One West was teaching, and yet was given the full revelation, is Apostle Tahar on down. Great Millstone was right all along. They teach you what the MLTB is. We do tons of videos about that, about the impending microchip that's going to be implanted in everyone. We were honest about that from the very beginning, and we give you the understanding. Man, we've given you so much more breakdowns on these scriptures in the ways of One West, but even stronger than that now. So much has come to light, and now that that's happened via the World Wide Web, because when it was One West, obviously the World Wide Web wasn't even formed yet. It was still a school that you had to find, and you could only find it in certain places. Not to mention the Israelite foreigners had also been found, and I'm talking about the ones that look like me, that may look like the heathen, but may actually, be an Israelite, that go back. The only ones that were teaching that really went into it was Great Millstone on down, So they were the only ones teaching who the real Israelite foreigners were, that, they might look like the other nations, but the spirit of prophecy will be in them, right? That prophet, may be among them. And like everything else, though, there's only a certain group that were given the understanding, of these scriptures, right? We didn't just come up with it overnight, but it was taught to us, and then we could learn that song. That's only a special group. And it goes into that in Revelation chapter 14, so I think I'll end on that, because, again, it's already happened. That's why all these prophecies are coming to pass really quick. But the main one is when the implantable microchip is mandated worldwide, Revelation chapter 14, verse 6, and it reads, And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, kindred, and tongue, and people. That's been done via the World Wide Web, through YouTube mostly, but also through other channels. Like I've been on BitChute, Rumble, and Odysee. Now back on YouTube as well, but I still have all those other ones, right? That's where I've been. I've been on all of them. And there followed another angel, and saying with a loud voice, Fear Yahweh and give glory unto him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, and the sea and the fountains of waters. Well, did we say in just this one verse? But that one verse happens to cover everything that we would be teaching, right? That we would teach, hey man, fear the Most High, because he's coming back to judge this place. And that America is Babylon the Great, and that if you're caught in any iniquities, and you don't come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, you're going to be judged by him. Yeah. We told you all that, breaking down this verse. When you break it all down, that's exactly what we're teaching. To fear the Most High and give glory unto him, for the hour of his judgment is coming, right? And it has come. Think about it. He's judging the earth unlike any other time, but he's going to judge this place in particularly with fire and brimstone. We definitely told you that America is going to get nuked. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon the Great has fallen the great city, because she made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Everybody wanted to buy into Babylon, and it's bullshit. Everybody wanted to be like Babylon. LGBTQ alone is worldwide now. Although, would you believe that there are 60 countries that still punish it, and 12 of them that still put them to death? Yeah, they put the sodomites to death, but nonetheless, though, Babylon the Great made all the others worship that alphabet group. Made them worship, this immorality. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast in his image, so, you love this place and all that, you're going to receive his mark in his forehead and in his hand. Here's the implantable microchip. It's going to be inserted into you. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High Yahweh, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. That is the Third World War. These are the nuclear missiles. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, which are better known as the UFOs, the angels of the Most High, and in the presence of the Lamb, meaning that Yahweh Shai is going to be among those angels to judge this place, but also to take his elect. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. Meaning that took them a long time to die, but they died in pain and agony for a very long time. They have no rest day nor night who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. And that is the implantable microchip. And that's what it is to be cast alive into the lake of fire, which is what this place will be when all those nuclear missiles shall be fired upon it. 200 million of them. So that's coming. We've warned you about it. We warned time and time again. Eventually you won't get these warnings, because a famine of the word is coming too. You can look at all the restrictions that are going on. So hopefully all this has been edifying, and hopefully everyone is repentant, because Most High is about to loose those angels in the great river Euphrates, and about to bring even heavier judgments. We're just beginning to see some of them now, but it's going to get a lot more intense as we get closer to the end. Some of us will be persecuted for this faith. Some of us are going to be jailed for this faith. Some of us are going to have to die in this faith, because he is coming. He's coming after us. Those that refuse to take the MOTB, he's also coming to kill a lot of us, to slay us. And that's what Trump does. That's all he does, because that's what FEMA and the so-called internment camps are there to do. What you also known as ISIS detention centers, right? That's where he sends ISIS. Well, think about it. Those are FEMA camps, and it's coming. So hopefully all this has been edifying for them to say, Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Ba Babal. Brakathum to Yehovah elect. Shalom.